also any friendly state legislatures that we can, make any headway with. But again, visit our website, as well as we have a new community page and a Facebook group to kind of stay up with us on all the different things as we wind up one phase and get ready to launch another phase. This next phase is going to require a lot of people to reach out and tell others to become team builders in your states, and to try to reach people with a big megaphone, if possible, so that more people can come to know what we're trying to do, and hopefully they'll want to support it after I talk about, why we think they would want to. Maybe you'll agree. And that stage with the ballot initiatives is going to require us to do some fundraising and some strategizing, and we'll continue with these meetings throughout the change of one phase to the next to help empower all of that to happen. So I do want to quickly introduce myself a little bit, because some of you might not have heard this, and just to kind of know who some of the folks are behind Take Back Elections. But I started Take Back Elections about a year ago, but prior to that, I've been like 10 years an activist on social, racial, cultural, economic, and environmental / climate justice issues, and I've founded several organizations. Taught me a lot about how to work with the community, and also with many levels of government, and successfully so. A lot of change has been positive change has been accomplished in the community area, but also together with friends and allies further beyond, I've been involved in state ballot initiatives, and so a lot of the work, even some of the organizations that I've been involved in or started are still bearing fruit today. So after witnessing Arizona blow up, like so many of us, our eyes just started popping out at what's been going on. And that's when I thought, wow, we've got some major problems. We're going to have really kind of like when you're trying to close the doors and windows in the hen house, you might be able to close several, but it doesn't make, if you leave, 2 or 3 open, you're going to still have the same kind of problem. You're not solving your problem. So we have a comprehensive piece of work that we're putting together, and you can learn more again on the website under our outline draft. That's the most recent draft, but we will be updating that again in the next few days. And some of the updates to that, or a little bit of the extensions of that, we'll talk about tonight. But there are also some areas on the website that have some of the language corresponding to that as well, and we'll continue to put those up. Our plan is, in terms of the strategy, to finish winding up our work with writing this, and continue to periodically bring it back to the folks that have been following us and interested, and asking them to, at the same time, while we're finishing that, to start up what they can in their local communities. And so we'll talk more about that about halfway through here tonight. But I did want to just say that our reforms accomplished closing all the doors and windows in that hen house. And so I think that we have a pretty good plan, and it's not fully written yet. So we have opportunities like this for still more feedback and input. If you have ideas that you don't know if we have or not, please post them in the chat box, and down at the bottom of your screen there for the Zoom meeting, if you hover over the bottom, you'll see the little chat box icon. And also, I believe it's in the participants, but it's in one of these links here, where you can also raise your hand if you want to talk about some things, or have in periods where we have a Q&A. So there's a way to do that. And so please utilize those things. And those of you who are with us online, of course, these are sort of pertinent just to you, but those calling in, we'll try to make sure we can and keep an eye on you and allow you to input as well. But you do have the opportunity to, in case you're able to, your bandwidth allows it, you could download Zoom because it's actually really very easy and you could participate a little bit better. But if you aren't able to and you're going to have to stick with the call-ins, you can also give us your feedback at the website. There are forums that you can post thoughts and comments in, even start new topics. There are also opportunities at the bottom of most of the pages there on the website to type in some comments if you have something that you want to make sure that we've heard from you about. And some of it might come to you this evening, so use the chat, post it there because we look at that. If it comes to you later after the meeting, those are some other ways to share. Also, keep an eye on our community page. We just started that. And go ask all your friends to like it. Go over there, and I think there's a way, I remember using a way where there's a little button that you can invite your friends to like our community page too, because we're kind of getting ready to launch, well, we are ready to launch this new stage at the same time as closing up another one, or we basically are getting ready, but close to ready. And so we do want and appreciate your ideas and your feedback and your engagement. So anyway, I would like to say that when we think about what we witnessed in the Democratic primary, there's a lot of news. It doesn't seem to stop, which is actually a good thing because there's a lot that needs to come out and be verified. But we can look at many different areas where we absolutely need to have reform. We've seen, and it's been documented, and we'll have all this up as resources as well on the website. But it's been documented how, there were definitely high problems, like 12% versus 2%, that the 2% indicates by the outcome of an exit poll being 2% different than the reported vote count, that difference is enough to trigger concerns that there was a problem with, the handling of the election. And so that's kind of how the U.S. views other countries' elections. But in our election, particularly like in parts of New York, for instance, 12% was what some of the exit poll discrepancies were. And there's a lot about exit polls. So we deal with the exit polls. And they also indicate bigger problems, other kinds of problems. So we are trying to address all of those from the equipment to do we want paper ballots and hand counting and all the questions around securing that part of the elections. Then we also have the voter suppression, which all of that leads into what we witnessed both in Arizona and New York and California. And so we have an area where we've written about things that are now in the news too, with lawsuits and all, about what we believe is going to be the best and fully adequate to protect against voter suppression in every area. So we've addressed each of these kinds of areas, and some of the area has to do with the media, both announcing results of the vote while people are still in line voting, or on the East Coast, and California has still yet to, close their polls. So we talk about things to resolve that problem. And so we're really addressing all these windows and doors. Some of the things that we look at are also voting styles, because if you're not able to have a hand count process that's for the actually a recommendation of essentially self-auditing hand counts and essentially self-auditing machine counts at the polls on the day of. There are other factors, and we're still working on a few of these areas because some of these are very difficult. We've had to do a lot of study and research and a lot of thinking. It's, almost would give you migraines after a while, but we've done a lot of this research. We've had working groups, little smaller working groups that have worked together to try to pull a lot of these things together, these what we call best practices. And so you can just continue watching all of the things, from the media to the exit polls to the vote flipping, and even caught on screen, recorded when, you know, a television announcer shows that in the case of the Democratic primary, Bernie Sanders was ahead a certain number of votes, and then all of a sudden, in the next announcement, he actually, some votes are subtracted. So it's like, how does that happen? So there's a lot of concerns. We're trying to address every last one of these so that we can have a really tight package. And so I do want to kind of go through just a tiny little bit, a few of those things. And if you want to follow along more closely, you might want to go onto the website at the .org. So the voter holiday would be, in our proposal, on Tuesday, what we're used to voting for, and not on the, that's one of leveling the playing field. So many people are able to run in elections right now. Everyone's running around in all kinds of directions. They're looking at many organizations who say that they have some solutions. They might have a couple of things they're recommending. They might be good, they might not. And of course, we're looking at everything that they're proposing, being confident of their own thing major for these candidates. We're writing exactly how that's going to look in a protocol that would go along with our amendment. And so these things are good. You know, take care of the campaign finance reform, the corruption. You know, it's a giant step to stopping that and allowing an awfully. So I want to say, I'll try to work with her. Maybe we can kind of go in tandem here. We also have addressed gerrymandering, and we haven't finalized. We have 3 actual ideas and proposals. 2 of them look good. One looks like it might be a rather difficult thing, possibly too big of a culture shift. Another one looks like it might be more viable, and we'd like to get some parties together and do some sausage making in that area. So that's one of the areas that we haven't aren't fully decided on yet. But the voter holiday and the public funding are areas that we have decided on. Abolishing the Electoral College, we don't want that to be a deal breaker. While we think it is the best way to go about it, we know people can be bought off, they can be blackmailed, they can be frightened. And they aren't elected by the people. So there may be some more reforms we would want with the Electoral College question, but there is a group called National Popular Vote who does and their language essentially says that the Electoral College has to represent the popular vote when it goes to vote. So if that's the case, it's almost like, you know, what's the point of having it? It's kind of useless. So maybe we should just abolish it. And yet at the same time, if that's going to be any kind of a stumbling block, that's a discussion we're open to having. But we, you know, feel strongly that there will be some decent reforms in that particular area. Let me see her. Now we also have, with our writing, we insist that we have a majority winner. Right now, with first past the post, it is a plurality win frequently. Not always, but frequently. And so we have limiting the lanes. That's, you know, kind of good. We don't have to be having too long of a campaign season, but long enough. We would add endorsement limitations for like seated public officials, and even for a period of time after they're not holding office. Um, and so they could not, give endorsements. The term limits and the revolving door, we're thinking about that. It is certainly something that we believe with how we're making these changes. Might not be people who know that right now people only have to do that and they would be able to vote. Also, it might be helpful for people if they wanted to have voter ID that is issued by the state to them to show that they're registered. And it can be a photo or a non-photo ID. That's something that we have a few questions about if anyone wants to weigh in on that part. But we think that it might be helpful for some people, in the day and age we live in, if they did have even that they could use in other situations. Vehicle. They can even, they want it to be, something people just take and act like it's been a verified list because, it hasn't. And so we don't condone using it at all in that way, but people can look at it, but they would have to cross-check basically with these other kinds of ways of doing that. Even, possibly contacting individuals if they have updated addresses, like with the post office or whatever. So we would also mail out sample ballots. That's an educational thing, and it would tell people where their poll location was. And it would also have a link or a location where they could go and find compiled information about the candidates and the ballot questions. Some of that would be things that media would have to provide. Others might be just candidate or question websites and different types of information. And these would be both mailed to people, but they would also, sample ballots could be found, in your public libraries and that sort of thing too. Ballot access in all 50 states for making it easy for the political parties as well as individuals to run for office, making it easy for write-in candidates, making it easy for the voters to have access by same-day registration or signing an affidavit at the bottom line. And let's see here. Oh yes, citizen access to the ballot by the Direct Democracy Ballot Initiative. We've mentioned the ballot initiatives before, but we add to that the referendum process, which Arizona is embroiled in right now, trying to contest the state legislature, trying to make their ballot initiative really onerous for them to use it. And so our language is going to make all of that better for them and everyone else, because it's going to make it a lot easier for the people to use it instead of harder. It's going to be easier than the present that the legislature in Arizona is trying to make harder, but it's going to be even easier than, the existing language for that, for Arizona and for all the other states also. We would add to that the referendum, which they're using, and the recall, which, belongs to individuals. The referendum is about the policies. The voting methods, as I mentioned before, that we are investigating or have investigated, that we're going to be putting out some information on soon. Approval, range, or score voting. It's kind of like you're used to voting Netflix with 5 stars or whatever like that. So you score your range of approval, basically. The approval voting is just I approve or I don't approve. It's the simplest form of a range or score style. The ranked choice is an instant runoff, and it has its features, which we'll be talking about later. And first past the post with the majority is not what we have now. We have with a plurality, but it's at least on the table with other things that we have to do a little sausage making on that possibly. But we have to have something we believe that we can hand count and audit. And that's kind of a problem that we'll talk about in the video to come shortly on the ranked choice. And it's not just, it's hard to hand count. It's that you have to have the counts from all of the voters, not just one precinct. And we're for chain of custody and other kinds of issues, wanting everything to get counted and tallied at the precinct on the day of and audited actually in various ways there before it even leaves, before the ballots get secured. So again, I mentioned election duty, like jury duty, and there would be, selection of a pool of workers and training, adequate training. Ballot uniformity, that's another thing. We're looking at, we have some holes with the different types of voting, such as the vote by mail versus the vote in your precinct, and then the early vote. Considering the scannable or a quick count, but we think that, that's a conversation we might not have to have that if we have polls. So we might need it to vote by mail, but the way the count would go in the polls, it would be a visual count by machine as well as a hand count, and they would each have their form of an audit happening at the poll that would kind of do the same thing as the scanning. So we're still a little bit in discussion on that. Again, securely transporting and handling all these ballots and where would they be stored, that's definitely going to be covered in the language as well as the accompanying protocol. And so we don't believe there will be very many provisional ballots needed with these reforms in place. There might be a few things where you would get a provisional ballot, but very few. And of course, those would have to be required. We would give them some sort of timeline that those would have to be counted. Nothing like in a mass scale, though. Part 4 is the voting process. Again, it would be a holiday. And we kind of talked about this a little bit. It's mostly here, as we're mostly talking about what's going to go on at the polls. And in a way, open primaries kind of becomes a moot point because the parties will have to deal with that themselves and anyone can run. And once they, if the party has their person, they put their party up in this first round and individuals can be put up and people who didn't get their party's nomination can put themselves up. Anyone, it's open to everyone. Okay, the paper ballots and the scanning. Hand counting, we talked about all of this. Part 5 is talking about different ways that you can cast your votes. So I mentioned that, and including the ones I mentioned, we would add the citizens abroad and the military. And some of those are a little bit thorny, and we're still working on, maybe some best ways to clean some of that up also. Polling places, the states, counties, and the precincts will be held accountable if their polling places are not adequate to keep from having excessive lines and therefore voter suppression. So that's going to be in the language. And the central polling locations will be provided as well, so that maybe you work across town a half an hour from your poll and you weren't able to go before work or something like that, or you have strange hours. Central polling locations, a few of those would be around as well. Exit polls, we've mentioned that. Someone had a really good idea we're thinking about now. I don't know if Laurel Kaskers is on, but she had a good idea about election polls I think we're going to use. So be sure to put your comments in the chat and over in our Facebook group and on the website, in the forums and at the bottom of the pages. Part 6, after Election Day, we'll obviously have those ballots in secured storage. They'll be continuously video recorded. We'll decide what kind of length of time people like for them to be required to be kept. And we don't have a term on that, but people can pipe up with that if they want. We will look at the exit polls as well, but we'll already have performed the audits at the individual polling places. And that's why we want a voting style that will let us do that, as well as get all the other great things. And we do have something to offer there. So as you can see, we would probably very seldom need audits. And just a word on audits, the way we think of them now. And that is when, very rarely have we ever seen an audit change back to whatever the election was called on the election night. The only times it's ever not called is if the vote is too close to call, and then sometimes they had the recounts and the audits and all of that. And sometimes those do pan out in a particular way people either do or don't like. But on the other hand, if it's been something like we saw in the Democratic primary, by the time the audits can even be done, if, you can even get the access. So we're going to make sure that we have terms that our members think are fair and good for what constitutes, the ability for people to get access should they, want and need them in a situation for an audit, sometime after the audit's already done at the polls. So we'll make sure to have that access and have them saved, but we think that they'll really probably be needed rather rarely. Now, another thing, though, if we decide on the first past the post with the majority rule, which we haven't a full decision on that, but that would require, and there might be some other cases, but unlikely, that we would have to have a runoff election. I know the French have some runoff election things that they mentioned. In the case of a tie, what they do, though, is the elder of the two candidates wins. So I thought that was interesting. You can see some of that on our Facebook group if you want to read about their elections. Now, our last section is about the consequences that we're going to apply to breaking these laws. Not consequences about if we don't like a certain, person's policies once we've elected them. Really, the only consequence we have is like we're doing now, put public pressure and just, elect someone else the next time around. But for breaking these laws, there are consequences. So, because this will be a law. And then also the language that we put out will replace the already existing laws in this area. And our language does establish the ballot initiative, the recall, and the referendum, as I mentioned before, and it's going to make those easier for the citizens to use them, and it's going to keep the legislature in check from trying to change something that the people have passed at the ballot, which happens quite a bit actually, and that if they do change or try to change anything, the only way they can do that is if they make their changes that they want and they put it back for a vote of the people. Now, if anyone has any comments or ideas they want to add about any of that, please do. That pretty much covers what we think will close all the doors and windows to the hen house. And, I'd like to take a few comments and questions if anyone has any right now. So we could, if you can learn how to raise your hands by hovering over the bottom, or people that are joining us by phone, if anyone would like to, have a question or comment, we could open up and unmute everyone if you're there, Adria, to do that. Or you could raise your hand. I know we did kind of a quick tour of that. And until I see someone raising their hand or hear them kind of trying to ask a question, I'm going to say that, the update to our strategy is we're going to finish this up. We have a couple of thorny areas we're still working on. We invite you to be part of that. And when we think we've got it where people are acceptable to what's there, we're going to run it by some attorneys. If you have good attorney people to suggest, we already have a few in mind, but you're welcome to do that. And as soon as that happens, then we're going to offer the language for the Secretary of State's office. We're hoping that we can get these things finalized and actually at least offer our language the first part of July, around the 4th. Hopefully we'll make that date or close. And as soon as the language is out, we have different wording, messaging. So we're going to be able to provide that, but we could use help in all those areas. And I would like to, I hear someone trying to ask something, I think. Do I hear a question or a comment? Maybe not. Okay. In that case, I want to just mention that, finish that part up with the strategy is what I just said. That's kind of the process that we're looking at and sort of the time frame we're shooting for. And once we get that done, we need everyone to go to the website because we have to build teams in our state. We want you to get your 3 to 5 people going and create a team where you are, and then think of who you know in other parts of the state and get them to making teams. Because right now we need you guys to start gearing up for when this language gets delivered to you, to see if your state can cover hopefully an all-volunteer ballot signature collection. You should also be looking individually into the rules and regulations per your state. Check with the Secretary of State's office and say, where's the link with the rules? Call them if you don't understand them, or just ask them to explain them to you so that you understand the time frame that they allow for collecting signatures, how many signatures. And we actually have some training for that because we do know how some of that works, but there's a few things that can be different from state to state. So just start preparing and building teams to support this so that if we put all this in place, we feel that it actually makes sense to try to run for an office, because right now, sure, we should support people for office, but if it's a, very critical office with the situation of our, voting machines and everything else being so imbalanced with the money, the funding and everything, it's not going to be a fair election, and it would be very difficult to win them. But we're trying to put this in place so that as soon as we get this in place, we can have slews of candidates. It'll be very simple to win, and it'll be very fair. So I want to ask Adria we're devising some things to support you in the field, if you will. And we also want to ask for your help with some of the other areas. We need someone to help us with fundraising. More specifically, we all need to help with fundraising, and we're going to make that more fun and easy, the fun part of fundraising, here in a minute. But we also need help with editing and messaging, social media work, that kind of thing. I'm going to post some roles that we need. I did not get that. Copy and paste it into my notes. So I'm not giving you a clear list right now of how you could help, but I will post a clear list on our community page, as well as if Adria can figure out a good place on the website, but also in our Facebook group. So you can figure out how you can help. And we need fundraising. We've worked very, very hard for a year now, and some of us have put in many, many hours. And so we can't keep that going sustainably. Most people, have a job and couldn't work very long for free. And of course, this is a way that we're going to save our whole democracy and all the things that are impacting each of us, like healthcare or just, even internet access, our, fundamental rights to a lot of different things are being challenged right now. So this impacts all of us, and this is the only way we see really being able to do a big change that we need. So I'm going to ask Adria to come on and screen share right now a little bit with some things that she has, and we've been kind of planning for everybody to support us in the field and help us, reach out to our friends and family. I'm wearing a button, by the way, Take Back Elections button. So we're going to have those, and she's going to show us some other things, and we're going to try to have some fun with some of them. Adria, I'm turning this over to you now, girl, for a few minutes. If you're on, hopefully. Okay, so let me give her a second.
All right, 1 second. Let me get this screen share up.
Okay, great.
How is everybody doing?
Good.
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 Look at Adria's t-shirt, everybody. She's got a great,
I
I was looking
was
at that.
looking at that.
and I've got a great button. And we want everyone wearing our t-shirts and buttons, and we can kind of do some, well, I'm going to let her talk.
All right. So you heard Monta explain, but here's the situation, okay? There's, with a few exceptions, basically 3 or 4 core people that are doing all of the work for this. And it is a lot of work. And while I don't want to sound like I'm complaining, because I'm not, because it's very important work, and I'm very happy to at least have some like-minded people to work with to try to fix this just, you know, unacceptable situation, right?
Yeah, just raise your hand and say, what can I do?
We really, really need you guys to do something, you know, get involved somehow, at least bring some more people in that can, you know, either help with some editing or help with the website or help, you know, build some teams up, organization, maybe make phone calls back to people that, you know, put contact information in on the website, things like that. So as far as funding goes, we have come up with some creative ideas for trying to raise some immediate money, because the reality is that, like Monta said, you know, I have a job and a career that I need to be doing. If, you know, this is really taking a crazy amount of time, and we won't be able to finish the project. You know, it's just unfortunately that simple. So I made a bunch of t-shirts and a hat, and on the website there will be a button for it, but right now there isn't currently a button, but I'll be putting up a button later. And there's only 2 items up right now, just to kind of give you an idea of what it will look like, but I'll show you the rest of the items in a second here. And we're going to do auctions of these shirts. And so the first 2, there's actually a bunch of them. I think they're pretty cool. So there's a lot more women's shirts than men's shirts.
But we can make some men's shirts.
We could make more. There's the front and the back of this red shirt. And also, if you guys want to let me know which ones you like the best, so I might make more of those ones and, you know, less of the ones you don't like or whatever.
Yeah, you can vote on things you like and don't like over in the chat, and maybe the colors too that you like, or
There's
sizes you might need.
2 different logo choices.
Maybe we could talk about some substance.
Tank top, the back of the tank top, and the front has like a kind of one logo in the corner there. This is one of my favorites. Takebackelections.org on the bottom. And another type of logo.
You could also tell us which logos you like best too. We have a little bit different logos.
Yes, which logos, which colors, which styles of, like this one has the little logo on the back and the big one on the front.
Yeah, and usually when she puts, you know, something on the back, she usually has a small one on the front to go with it.
Or a big one on the back and a big one on the front.
Yes.
So this is one of the men's t-shirts. It has a pocket logo. This logo is pretty cool, actually. Oh, wait. There we go. Can you guys see
Yeah,
that?
it looks good.
Adria and Monta,
Yes.
I'm only seeing a screen. I'm not seeing what Adria is showing.
Oh.
I don't know why that is, but that's what I'm seeing.
Oh, thank you. I'm sorry. Okay.
There we go.
Thanks, Kate.
Yeah.
Okay, so you didn't see any of that, guys. Is that right?
We'll quickly look again.
All right. Well,
This
this,
is
this will probably be the main one that will have this logo. So
I also want to say that if people mute themselves, then they won't interrupt what Adria is doing. If you mute yourself, otherwise you've got other people interrupting the visual.
can't go there. There we go. It's hard to go backwards. So that's another man's shirt, the red with the pocket one. And then this one has it on the back.
That's nice.
Kind of a cool color. And
It's
so
a turquoise.
these will all be up on the site for auction. Maybe you can encourage people to, come to the site and bid on them and have a limited edition,
Right.
Shirt for Take Back Elections and, help us not be dead in the water with this project.
Yes. So put your sizes and colors and things that you like, the logo styles that you like. If you want to put those in the chat, that'd be great.
Yeah, any preferences? I appreciate the feedback.
So we do need people to start working to build up teams in their, especially ballot initiative states, but really even some of the states that might have a friendly state legislature. Those states we could also focus on. The other states we should still build in because, excuse me, Adria's not showing the hat now.
There's only one hat. Oh yeah. And then the really cool one. This is actually, there's only going to be one of these.
Oh yeah,
The bear mug.
a beer mug, yeah.
And it's dishwasher safe.
All of that.
Adria, what I'm seeing is I'm seeing other people who are making noise. If you make a presentation, you need to mute every person. Otherwise, you're going to be interrupted.
I see. Okay, well, I'm done anyway, so.
Oh, well, I only saw one T-shirt, just to let you know.
Do you guys want me to show some of those again, or?
Yeah.
Yeah? Okay.
Somebody shows, yeah, pick out several to show again and then just, we'll have them up on the.
Oops. Sorry. Okay. All right. Here we go. We'll just go really fast through them. Tank tops. T-shirt. This is the back and the front little corner. The men's shirt with the pocket. There we go. Navy blue, and this is one of my favorite designs. That's the back. Another men's shirt. This is the back. The logo's on the back. This one doesn't have a pocket though. Red with the pocket. And the white. And a hat.
All right. Okay. And that sounds great. I hope that, Adria's worked really hard on these. Kate did the logo. We've been working on lots of things, putting an infrastructure in place to support the writing, doing the writing, and lots of things. So we really are going to depend on you to step in and help us out with some of the roles that I'll be posting and sharing. Some of those are help with some of the writing and editing, help with media that we're going to start putting messaging together for, help with social media too, kind of a special media team to start building a buzz and getting us out there. And we're going to have some contests like whoever brings the most people to the next meeting will, get to choose a gift. Also, just some various types of contests to sort of help us have fun with all this. And so any of your ideas and anything you can do to help us, because we're just getting ready to start this next phase and we sure could use some recruits. The troops need to come help us out a little. We're getting very, very tired with all this work and we need a little kind of support and refresh. So anyway, thank you guys for all you've been doing already. And now I know we're all going to be staying super busy. And, anyone who's, not sure what they think about, the language, let's just get into the sausage making. If there's any areas that you aren't sure about, then please post them in the chat and we'll go from there and try to just get everything rolling. So is there anyone who might like to have any more input or discussion right now while we're still together? And so I guess hopefully you liked the different designs and you might like to go to the we're going to have like a shop on the website and you might like to order something there. So
document actually.
Are you trying to say something, Marcia? I can't hear you.
Oh, maybe. I was asking where is the actual document located?
It's in a stage of like lots of things aren't pulled together yet. Like some parts are good, other parts are, still getting some revisions. Like I don't know if you were on, how you've been on for very long, but I tried to go through, some of where we were. I can't hear you.
I heard you go over them.
Uh-huh.
But so I'm trying to figure out who's deciding.
Well, that's why we're asking now for people to put in so that we know who has some concerns, and we'll try to, if there's any concerns, get people together in a final conversation. So if you have some areas of concerns, let me know.
Okay, and we're letting you know privately after this meeting or on this chat right now?
Anytime, anyway, anywhere. Here, afterwards, any way that works best for you.
All right, well, I mean, I think I've told you everything that.
Yeah. There's a few areas that I'd like to visit with you specifically about. And most of it, I think you're going to be probably very pleased with. There's a couple of ideas that you have mentioned that we've incorporated that we didn't have. And then the one area about the gerrymandering thing that I did kind of mention earlier, I think that's an area I think we'd like to visit more about, to just see what's a realistic conversation. I know that this is something else I'm going to mention because I did.
Yes.
Okay, is Adria raising her hand?
Come in.
Yeah, I was just going to say that this is one reason why actually, we need some help, because poor Monta is like doing so much work to try to get, there's so much, it's so complex, as we all are aware, all the different areas, that need to be thought about and researched and determined and then written out in a very detailed and thorough manner. And for, just a couple people to have all of that work on their shoulders and to just kind of keep everything straight too. It's a lot, if maybe there's somebody that can help to type it up and put it into like a better formatted layout, that would be really helpful. And obviously make the process faster and smoother so that the document can be, reviewed, for a more kind of semi-final and then final review
Right.
before it, is submitted.
Or also like one issue, like, are we gonna do range voting, and then we vote on that issue, and then
Yeah, on the
or
voting
are we gonna
thing,
do-
yeah, on the voting questions that you're asking right now about the voting style, we're trying to put together a video that explains our findings of the research so that before people make up their mind, they have the information and education that we're coming from so that they can at least take that information and decide what they think about it. So we're going to try to put a video out very soon on the voting styles because it's, again, sort of complex itself, and have it just be just that question. So to that one, that's a very kind of thorny, difficult one for a lot of different reasons. So that's why we thought a video might be good.
Okay, and are we gonna do hand counted paper ballots, or are we doing the warehouse clicky checky thing or whatever?
We're doing hand count right now. What we want is hand counted paper ballots at the polls, and the hand counted paper ballots would actually be counted in such a way that they would have an audit of themselves. So the hand count will audit itself, and then there will also additionally at the polls, while that's going on in one side of the room, in the other side of the room there would be at least the way we see it right now, the tallying of the votes by an electronic tally with a scanner that people would be there watching, and they would see, if the votes raise, they would just sort of see the votes changing as the different votes are scanned through. And so those eyes on that process will be essentially a type of audit, but also that process can be live streamed so others can, a bigger, group that might not fit into the poll can do the same thing.
And I mean, I agree with that, but is that something that you're saying is the whole group agreeing? Is there like a certain amount that agree?
Well, when we get our document written, the whole group is going to read it, and they're going to say, I do like it, I don't like it, and here's what I don't like about it. And then we're going to have, that would be like what Adria said, a semi-final kind of a round. And then we'll have a final round that sorts all of that out. Yeah, Adria?
And in the meantime, what I've tried to do with the website is to kind of create categories so that there are, so that different people's ideas and thoughts and opinions can go into, a more organized format than the Facebook group, feed. So, and if there are other categories that I've missed, please send me a note or whatever, and I'll add a forum for that so that those can be discussed. And then of course the actual outline, which is, kind of the first rough, bones of it. There's place for comments to be put there as well.
At the bottom of the outline page. Yeah.
Yeah.
A lot of the pages on the website, at the bottom of those pages, there's a way for you to make comments on whatever was on that page.
Do you have the issue about DC?
About DC?
Yeah.
Well, here's what I think about DC, and we can have everyone I'm glad you're having, some conversation here. That's what these meetings are about too. If DC has its own ballot initiative, its own referendum and recall, I think it's very easy for them to put it on their ballot that they want to be a state. I think it's a little bit separate of an issue than an election issue. to say we want DC to be a state, but others may disagree. I'm trying to keep this really kind of focused in on the election part, because obviously once we do take back elections, we still have work to do, you know, and our elected people will make the kinds of changes that the people really want, or the people will take it in their own hands with the direct democracy avenue. So that's kind of what I think about that part. And you're welcome to, you know, we can have further discussions if you don't feel that that's a good idea.
I mean, it's not my main issue. When I was looking for things to put together in the document I was making, I went around to different sites, and there were groups from DC that they wanted to be able to vote just as a state, but they didn't say they wanted to be a state. So I mean,
oh, I see. Well, that's another good point. What you're saying there is what you said, you went around to other groups. That's a good way for anyone who's on the call now to say, well, maybe I could go around to other groups like Marcia just said, and I could, you know, tell them about Take Back Elections and what we're doing. And you know, we all have, this belongs to all of us, and we have a way that it can belong to us that we're trying to, you know, put together. But I'm hoping that people are understanding how they can contribute and how they can contact me directly or any of those things, and how they, and that's to the language itself, but also how they can help. Because we do, like Adria said, we need some editors and, you know, some writers to help with this, and some people to comb over it for dotting the I's and the T's and all, because it is complex. So.
Well, that's why I was suggesting you do one line of the document at a time, and we do it together. So, like when they do the platform of revising, and they go down the line one line at a time, and they talk about, they read what the line is, and then they read what they want to change it to, and then they vote on that line. And then
we might do that, but ours is going to have a lot of lines, so I thought to save the time, everyone could see the whole thing, and they could say, okay, I have trouble with, you know, this line, that line, whatever, you know, and what do you think about changing this line to that? So in a way we have that, maybe just a slightly different structure to it, to try to save time, really, because and if it boils down to that's what we think is only going to work out after everyone, you know, has had a chance to, we're going to try to put it out, let people study it a little while, have a meeting, but hopefully they've already made some comments prior to the meeting that says, what about this line, that line, whatever, you know. And then we have a meeting and we go over all that.
All right. If you think that it saves time that way, I'm thinking it would save time the other way, so that you're doing all the work yourself. So you have a meeting on Tuesday, and we go over one section of it, and we comment about that section, and then at the end of the meeting, we would have what that section is going to say. And people need to study more about it. I mean, that's going to have to be something that they take the initiative to do. I'm not saying not to do the videos and the other things, but I'm thinking the people who are here have already a knowledge of some things about different issues with voting, and are already wanting to participate in helping to fix it. So,
well, those are some good points. I know that even some of our people that would normally be here that spoke to me today was to the point of the voting styles, was about ready to say, well, we have to take that out of there, the ranked choice voting, that we want something different than that. Yeah. We just have to not have anything about voting styles. And so we had a discussion, and in the discussion I reminded her why it was such a problem. And it is, and I'm going to go ahead and get into it right now because it seems like I need to. So with the ranked choice voting that so many people want, two things. Yes, we've shown how difficult it is to count, but if you're in an election besides a single group, one group, where other groups are also voting somewhere else, you cannot count like a hand count at that precinct in the ranked choice vote, because the way ranked choice vote works, you have to know what all the rest of the precincts voted for round number 1. And you can't even go to round number 2. And then if you go to round number 2, you have to see what all the rest of the precincts then divvied up their ballots like. It becomes a nightmare. So essentially, while technically you can count it, technically you could use it in a confined one group or one body, like, you know, if we wanted to use it right here, we could use it right here and it would work. And maybe it's a little more challenging to count, but we could still do it.
There's a even simpler problem with ranked choice voting. Ranked choice voting ultimately puts you back to just 2 choices. So you're not really representing everyone.
There's plenty, yeah. There's plenty of problems with ranked choice voting besides that one. But where the rubber meets the road for some of us is we have to have this hand count, and we're not giving up on the hand count.
Well,
and that's not going to let us do it.
Well, that, and then we also have to have proportional representation. So whatever the count comes out, so okay, let's use ice cream. So some people want chocolate, some people want vanilla, some people want strawberry. So, but if the strawberry people never win, that's not acceptable to
Right.
say, well, my first choice, the strawberry, keeps getting beat, so I've got to take vanilla.
I get it.
So
Yeah.
there has to be something where we say, okay, well, we're going to have to get a little bit of strawberry for some people because they don't want the vanilla or the chocolate.
Right.
You know?
You're fully right. And the one thing about that proportional representation has a lot to do with how many, like we talked before, you apparently put some limits on Jeff Mueller, or I guess Jeff?
Jim Miller.
Jim. Yeah, I was going to say Jeff isn't right.
It's okay.
Yeah. So Jim, that it would be 30,000, as a limit. But the way, that's quite a big cultural change. Is there any other way that we can still have strawberry and we can still have vanilla and chocolate? So that's the sausage making I was talking about now, that I would like for, as I mentioned specifically, because I know how you feel about this issue. And you're right about this issue, and right to feel the way you do. We agree. So that I would like to, maybe have a meeting about that discussion. Adria.
I just want to say part of the problem is that, there are these groups that I think have some funding coming to them that are really pushing this ranked choice voting without actually explaining it. And they really have a lot of people, I don't want to say brainwashed, but kind of brainwashed in a way.
Well, they did the same thing with instant runoff voting, which was what ranked choice voting is.
Right.
Exactly.
So part of, I think, yes, the people in this group should agree, but then also, if this, if these laws are going to be applied to everybody, we need to be able to explain to people why we've chosen this, even despite all the fact that all these other people think that this other thing is a better idea. Right. So, that's educating.
That's why the video.
Educating people is
right.
a huge deal.
Well, that also comes into play as once we have the document, then the next step is taking the document on the road, right? So then we each
Right.
have to have classes with people in groups and
Right.
do maybe even
Yes.
do an election, or we have to figure out a way that we're going to teach people. And I think if we do actually have elections, we have a large body of people, we have half the room do the elections the way we used to, half the room do the way we are saying, and then let them see the results. Not only do they see the results, they also experience how the new voting would be.
Right. It's an excellent idea.
By the way, Nancy has been very patiently raising.
Oh,
I'm not saying Nancy at all. I couldn't see to
I
call her.
understand.
No, I'm having trouble with this technology. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Go
I can
ahead.
hear you.
Yeah, I'm just thinking about the initiative process. If we're going to do that, it's got to be written in 100 words. I don't know how we're going to get this done in 100 words, and I'm wondering if it needs to be a series of initiatives. Was that your plan?
Thank you, Nancy. I'll address that. I have already started writing what the 100-word part is. Because you're correct about the 100-word, or actually different states might have a different number. Some states.
I just reviewed Arizona's, and it's 100 words. So who knows
Okay.
what that is.
And I have already started on that. No, it isn't perfect. It isn't finalized, but there it is over there in its rough self. And I believe that, yes, we can do that. So I'm not concerned about that, actually.
All right, good.
Yeah,
And
I'll be looking forward to see what's actually actionable with the initiative process in my state.
Yeah.
But you have my full support.
A
A lot of good ideas.
Speaking of
And
you guys,
I think I would like to mention something here, because I think our conversation today also was that, you're just sort of one of the people that are kind of just learning about all these things, like we're just talking.
Yeah, I am. Yeah, I found
And-
you
and
right after the inauguration.
So
Give an outlet
we're
for
glad
frustration.
We're glad that we have you, but we do have some people here with a little bit different level of understanding at times about
Yes.
different things. So thank
Yes.
you.
really need people to also go to the website, and there's a sign up area for the different states. Right now,
Yes.
all of the ballot initiative states are there, and I'm going to add the non-ballot initiative states as soon as I can get to it.
Good.
But yeah, we really need people to start filling up those slots so that we have like teams ready on the ground to go and actually move. Once all
And bring your friends. Maybe that's the contest we can do for the first week. Whoever gets the most signups for the ballot initiative and non-ballot initiative states, then we'll have a contest. Somebody wins in the non-ballot initiative states, somebody wins in the ballot initiative states, and we give them something.
Okay.
You can also save your 100 words by having a title. We, the people, want whatever the title is to be enacted.
Mhm.
And then take what the title consists of,
Yes.
you don't have to actually put that
That's
on
smart.
Yeah. That is a very good idea. So you can be helping us think about the title. I know you have an idea, and we're just.
You know why I want that title? Because I want to stick it to all the people that I've been begging for years to get involved and do this, who have been going, oh, that's not that important.
Mhm. Thank you.
This first and that first. And I, and I was like, help. And
So we're just going to.
It's pretty damned important now.
It's very, very important. And that's why I'd really like to use this thing that's going on with the Arizona situation to help those people that are working very hard with that to realize that no matter which way it goes, we've got their back. And the process of us having their back is actually going to make everything they could ever do in this area again much, much easier.
Yeah, well, the challenges to the initiative process are pretty challenging here.
Yes.
We're fighting it, as you know.
Yes, and so it's an opportunity for us to let them know something about us as having their back. Take Back Elections
Lucky
actually.
you actually have an initiative. I'm in North Carolina. We don't have anything.
And you will when we win.
I know.
Won't that be great?
Yes, it will.
You can go to town.
So,
They're trying to take it all away from us.
do you
pretty
think
pretty-
everybody's in
pretty much.
agreement that the counting for the executive should be separate from the counting for the legislative? So, the executive office is a 1-seat office, and we should use range voting, and the counting for the legislative is a multi-seat office where we should have some form of proportional representation.
Yeah, so two things. I don't think that with our research, we support the ranked voting at all. If there was a way, I could say yes.
I said range.
Oh, range.
Range
Yes.
and score.
Okay. Right. Range and score is definitely something that we can favor. We can also favor our first past the post, but only if it's a majority with a runoff, an automatic runoff later, if it isn't a majority. I don't know that we'll do that, but, you know, for an individual election that you're, you know, saying, you can suggest what you would want to use besides the range and score, which we do like.
What I'm saying is, for the office of president, range and score would work because there's only going to be one president and one vice president. But for the congressional body, even though you may be picking one congressional person, they then have to negotiate with others. So they're not like on their own. So the electing them should be done in a different way than electing the president.
And so that's what we will talk about a little bit, what some of those things can look like. Because if we do this other possibility that will make us have, you know, strawberry and vanilla and chocolate and all of it, then if we do that, we would write a protocol that would improve everything that's already out there. So we would need your ideas to make it, you know, good. Otherwise, we have, you know, a different opportunity. And one of the things, I don't know who here has not yet looked at our very first thing on gerrymandering, but it helps us to understand gerrymandering historically. And, you know, again, I always tell people nothing's 100%. Nothing's perfect. Even our stuff can't be perfect. We can only get it as perfect as we can get it, you know. And yet, on the other hand, there's some concerns that I have without a certain kind of protocol about going to this proportional representation that just has the whole state, you know. And so we have to talk about that a little more and see if we can solve it over there or if we can solve it over here.
Okay, and so then, to go to be represented in Washington, I think is different than to be represented in your state's General Assembly. So I can see a need for a district in your state General Assembly more than I can see in the Congress, because the laws that are going to be made in the Congress are going to affect the whole state. It's not really going to matter. I mean, I don't understand what my representative to the state is going to get that somebody else in another area's representative is going to get for them, because the rule is going to be for the state. So that's why I feel like the state doesn't need to have districts, that it should be, okay, so if you divided the state by 30,000 people, you are going to get almost, in my case, over 200 representative seats. So yes, people are not going to be that easily capable of making that jump. But even if we say, let's have you know, double what we have now. And so that bringing what North Carolina has 13, so bringing us to 26. Even that, it still should be, they should be proportionally in the state. So it wouldn't matter where that person lives, so to speak, in the state, they're still going to be representing our state.
Yeah, in a proportional kind of way. Yeah, so there's some complicated things, like Andrea has said, it's like, and for the first time ever, I kind of mentioned migraine headache, because man, you know, there is a lot of cerebral work here, you know, and it gets to be a lot. And so with all the different things, and how do they weave together, you know, like what voting style do we use for this situation, you know? And so, and then why don't we want that voting style for that situation? Do you see? It's strange.
Right. Well,
A lot to think about.
Explanation of why you want one for one and the other is the difference between a multi-seat and a single seat.
Well, that, yes, but I'm talking about not only that, but even, you know, why we want this voting style because of, can you hand count it or not? You know, multiple reasons. So that's just what I'm saying. There's so many layers of things to think about as we decide what to do. But I like that you are big on the range and score, so are we. And I think that we need to have some more creative thinking about, because we want the same things, we just need to see what's the best way to get it. And if we can find a good way to get it and pull people on board more easily, and we're pretty much ending up with the same thing, that might be worth us to consider it. So we do need to have that discussion more and invite anyone who wants to come into that to do so. So type it in the chat. I want in that conversation or something like that, because that's a thorny one. And sometimes, you know, for us to announce all these meetings, we make the memes, we have to, you know, send them out. And thank you, Judy, for sharing. I so appreciate you helping us get those out and about, and for being here tonight. So we do have some new people. So even though it sounds redundant when we go over things again, new people are coming all the time. So
I think, I don't know, you can disagree with me or whatever if you want. I personally, I think the forums would be maybe the best place to house, you know, the discussion, because then it doesn't go away. You know, it can be recalled and reviewed and, you know, printed out maybe even or whatever. And it can be categorized by topic, and, you know, you can have all the voices there and just.
yeah, that would be a good place to put some thoughts. And ultimately, we might have to have a back and forth meeting at some point to just get a final thing, so that when we know that what we've decided on, that the ones most interested among us on that issue are going to be in agreement, and we're going to have hashed it out, and we're going to say, yeah, we like it, and we can move forward.
Yeah, I think just, I mean, what I meant was kind of like the background part of, you know.
Yeah, just the points you want to make sure we cover in that. Yeah,
and then whatever, the more, you know, the really difficult, like the gerrymandering issue, or, you know, whatever, the ones that, you know, end up like kind of over here, like we haven't quite, you know, gotten that one yet, then we can, you know, have those hashed out at the end or whatever. And
yeah, that's kind of where we are right now. But I like your idea to post anything in the forums too.
I mean, none of it, well, I mean, so, like, I'm not, hopefully I'm not offending you, but none of us have seen the document, the actual document either. So we don't know what stage it's at, or what's been written, or what hasn't been written, or whatever. So, like, it's kind of difficult to discuss it when.
Yeah, it is hard, and I realize that. And that's why we need some more writers and editors to help us, because there's too many jobs. And we need some help with this job and other jobs as well. And so let's just reach out and see if we can build little teams that can help us. That's a start for every state anyway.
I mean, personally, I think that there's a lot of discussion that, not necessarily discussion, but a lot of things that still maybe, you know, haven't been, like the Electoral College, you know, That's a whole kind of big thing. The gerrymandering thing is a whole big thing.
Well, but see, if you're counting the way Jim talked about with choice of representation, you don't need gerrymandering goes away. So there's
Right.
no districts.
Right.
There's
Yeah.
no electoral college. There's no because it's almost
a state-
like population.
Yeah, it's a state thing. And,
Right.
and that guy, Winston
Well,
Apple,
I'm sorry. Electoral college is for the executive branch.
Yeah, the
That's
president.
different- That's a different.
yeah, that's the only thing it's for. Yeah, and actually, if you do away with the Electoral College, you have to do away with the 12th Amendment. And like I said, the language is going to say, anything else that's on the books about this is going to be erased,
But you know what? The Center for Election Sciences say you can use ranges for voting and still have your electoral college, and it will still come out more fair than first past the post.
Yeah, that's true, except that the thing with the Electoral College in my mind is the reason it was put in place
To
in
override
the first place. It was put in place for, anyway, the states
Judy,
are
I
going to
think
have
wants to say something.
blow their heads up off of it,
Clapping.
And here's the thing about that too. This National Popular Vote group that I said
Yeah.
that's what they said, that they just want the Electoral College to vote the way that people vote. Well, we like that. But I think to myself, well, if they do that, why do we need them? We already have the vote, let's just get away with them. And besides that, because they could, maybe they could be somehow convinced to vote differently or something,
I think one of the things that is maybe a positive thing about them, although they failed miserably at the one chance that they had to actually use, their
The
positive.
reason they exist.
Yeah, the whole reason they exist was to be like a bulwark against, a con artist, basically conning the country into voting for them. But some kind of failsafe like that, obviously the founders or whatever, they clearly had some kind of foresight that allowed them to think of situations that they weren't even really applicable to them at the time. But then, of course, on the other hand, there were clearly things that they were, very mistaken about as well.
It's tough. That's why we might not have 100% perfect, but we're going to be pretty close. We're going to be enough close that I think we can take our country back, basically.
And then public financing, have you determined that there's going to be a certain amount of money they can use?
Yes.
I don't think they need any money. I don't think there's anything needed I think
you might be right. I saw what you wrote about this, and maybe you are right. Maybe we just don't give them any money at all. But the two things I think about that is we can't suppress freedom of speech. So if someone wants to go door to door, are we going to be so heavy-handed that we say to them, you can't print up flyers to hand at the door? Because that would sort of equate to money. And if we gave everybody a certain amount of money that they could have that certain amount of that type of speech with, then, we might have a better time of winning the lawsuit we'll likely have to face with this public elections thing. But within the context of the infrastructure as critical infrastructure, just like roads are critical infrastructure, our utilities, our schools, I feel that we can manage, we'll get some good attorneys and we'll be ready to take that challenge. And I think we can win.
Yeah, I see what you're saying about, and also a person can be able to make their own website that describes them and things like that.
Yeah.
We just want to try to prevent.
There's nothing we can prevent 100%, but if somebody looks really wow, you sure do have a lot more flyers than, that, we're going to have to say to them, no, here's your flyers. Once that's done, your people can go and talk to people, They can write a letter to the editor. How can we prevent those things? We can't. We probably shouldn't want to. But yes, at least there's going to be so much more equalization. And then if
Well, maybe
people
they
lie,
can use their own personal money, but even that, somebody who's got
I think it needs to be a limited amount, because here's the amount, no matter how wealthy you personally are, no matter how many backers you have, you, along with this person over here who has zero of any of that, you each have that same amount. And then we each have, we each have the media thing. And I've been thinking about your idea with the media too, about no people in the audience. And I can see the pros and cons of all of that. But maybe I, think there might be, and people can weigh in. The chat's still open for comments about the fact of, I'm kind of beginning to think maybe it would be better to just have it televised with no people in the audience.
This makes me this makes me think that, perhaps we might give a try to what Marcia was saying about maybe going, maybe not starting at the beginning, but, through the more complex areas, going line through line in a meeting like this.
Yeah. Well, we will. We ultimately will, but we could have a meeting like this. People are going to go through everything line by line. Every letter, every dot, every period, every comma is going to be done.
I thought you were was all gonna be done by July 4th. So I don't think that's gonna really be that deadline.
See, that's another thing. I don't think that we have to do it in the line by line fashion. It's going to get done that way if we can just start, if we can get enough help to build the infrastructure here. So I and maybe a few specialized helpers with specialized interests can go over here and get that document finalized. Then we say finalized. Then we say, here's the document that we want to present to you. Please read it for yourself, line by line, and make your notes. And then we're going to have a big meeting.
Martha, I think you're missing a little piece of it, because you're looking for the infrastructure to do, I'm not quite sure what that was in the back there, but so that you can be free to write this thing. And what you need the infrastructure to do is to go over what you're going to be writing. If anybody can do the dictation, so to speak, what we finally decide, okay, that's what the line is going to be.
I think you misunderstood.
Online together.
I think you misunderstood.
Oh, okay.
I said with helpers, whoever the interested parties are.
Well, we're
all the interested parties.
Yeah,
and we don't live in your state. So we have to
kind of get some of this stuff out, even if it's on napkins or whatever, you know what I mean? Like, so that we could help, get it together and start to shape it into something, more solid,
Get the interest going.
Well, I just mean the actual document.
I think we should be writing it when we're here in these groups. Online.
Here's the thing.
Yeah.
The timing is the problem. We don't have the time to do that, in my view, because we have a 2018 election coming up.
Right.
And we have people who do have to deal with ballot initiatives. They have to deal with the rules of the initiative process in their state. And they're going to try to beat a certain deadline. And we're really kind of late to the game right now because it's a giant piece of work.
But how is it going to take less time with you doing it all by yourself?
Yeah, if you gave us all a copy,
Yeah.
then maybe we could throw our 2 cents in.
Yeah.
Here's the thing. I'll just throw everything there and say, you guys put it together then. I don't know. But that's what I was saying with a team, I don't know. I think that we should do that knowing we're on the team, but not here, because this is exhausting to me. It might not be exhausting to you, but these meetings are, to me, tiring. I would rather give everyone everything. Everyone just, put it together their way. And then, I don't know. Honestly, I think that the best thing to do, I think the best thing is really to put something out there that's as complete as possible for the time being.
How about you take the thing that I wrote and change what I wrote to what we all want. And take the thing that I wrote has like 7 entries, and we can start from the top and go through it and change it. And so we already have a document written. And I think I've covered just about every. Go ahead, Adria.
And then also, it might be easier also to kind of look at this meeting from a different angle, right? So instead of looking at it like you're, trying to explain things to people and you're like on stage, being the MC or whatever, running everything like that, then instead of that it's more of just like a study group,
Yeah.
like we're getting together. It's an informal, kind of a thing. We all have, printed the document out, written our notes in our own time beforehand, and then we're just meeting up here as if we, we're meeting up at the library or whatever, and, and going through it.
I have no problem with that. That's basically what I said. One different thing I said was get a group of people working together. So how would that group work together? Probably this way. Or I would just say, here it is, work individually. We report back, the group comes back together.
I was just thinking it would be less exhausting for you if if you weren't like on, stage kind of thing,
Yeah, I hear you. I want to make everyone not only be included, but feel and be included. I feel that when I can get this language together, we need the help that we were asking for anyway, no matter what I do or don't do. But if I can try to
need more help, but I find, and I only say this because I've been thinking about this for like 4 or 5 years, and I tried to get help, and people pop in on one issue and then they pop out. And this is the first time I've seen a substantial amount of people stick to the work of the whole thing and understand how all of the pieces have to interrelate to each other. So we may have to just start with us and then take that piece that we have to people and say, what would you think if things were like this now? And that might bring people into staying longer. And unfortunately, it's 10:16 where I'm in. I have to be at work at 11, and I have an hour drive. So I want to leave this last thing. I have something called the Bill of Rights for Voting Equality. And what I think we should do,
I've looked at it.
Next Tuesday, start at the top of that and change it to what we all agree it should be changed to. And so there's a document already written, and it's not, and again, I didn't write a lot of it. I went to each group. Every group was into, this group was into this issue, and that group was into that issue, and I just stole it, and I put it in a form. And so if it's right the way it is, fine. If it's not, we'll change it to what we think it should be right, and we'll move down the line. And one meeting we'll do the first line.
We could take both the documents, and put
That's what I've been trying to do, is merge your document into ours, whatever we don't have. But the bottom line is,
if we're doing it during the meeting, one of us can be typing it while we're doing it. Then by the time the meeting's over, it's done, and you're
right.
Now you're not having to it's too much, Monta. You got to let go of some of it. You know what I mean?
I'm not saying that I don't want to, but I want to say to you guys, there have been other people in small groups working to put this language together. It hasn't been only me, but I've had to oversee a bunch of groups working to put this language together. And so there's parts of it that are pretty good. There's the parts I mentioned tonight that we're still trying to work out. And there's not that much of it really that we're trying to work out to where we couldn't just, if I could just have a tiny bit of downtime, present it to you guys. Do you want to just see all the scratchy things or something a tiny bit more together? It just feels that if I could present it to whoever wants to see it in a semi-coherent form, rather than just all these pieces, I think that would be you know, what you guys are asking, and then you redo it the way you're saying, line by line.
Put it all up, and then we can copy the parts that we might have, and we can say, okay, this part where you have this here, I think it would read better this, or however.
Yeah, we can help.
I'm gonna go to the forums. I really have to go. I'm sorry. I hate to do this.
Well, that is a problem with East Coast to West Coast.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Well, I
for
mean,
you
it's just that
Coast people.
I work overnight. So.
Yeah.
Thanks, Marcy.
Well, we're glad that you came tonight and that you've
Oh,
come.
no, I'm gonna come. That's just what I'm saying. The people who are in it are here, and the people you've been working with.
Right.
Can you get those people you were working with to attend these groups though? That's the thing.
I don't know who's on right now. We have 9 people. So Bruce is here. Nancy didn't work with our group, but she's here. Joanne isn't here. Some of them, those are some Arizona people. And Beatrice was going to come on. She worked with our group a little bit early in the kind of the big hairy part of what do we do at the polls, but that's not the only thing. So I would like to ask everyone to go and watch the vote by mail thing and say to yourself, while I'm waiting for whatever else I've asked for, that's something we don't have language on, and we need language on this vote by mail. Do we thumb up, thumb downs, or what do we do? And there's a whole thing there that shows us what Arizona does, and that's probably fairly typical. And that's something that we need some work on still
Right.
in that area before
Well,
this
how
document.
is voting by mail different from absentee voting?
It doesn't have to be different from it. Vote, you know, the absentee voting could be done just like the early voting
Right.
at the registrar's office. It's all a problem. All of those little things have their own special problems. So yeah, there's.
I don't have a problem with absentee voting. I'm sorry, people. I'm sorry.
Okay,
Marcy,
we'll talk some more.
Let me know if you need more forum area. You know what I mean? Because okay.
Okay. I haven't been at the forum in a little bit. Let me go check it out.
And everybody go watch the vote by mail thing if you didn't already see it. And think about that. That's an area we need help with. So, hi, Melody. I didn't even until now know who was on here. I'm so glad you're on here. Because you can hear us trying to sort of work out even how to go forward the best. But we actually have a lot of work done, but we have some kind of thorny areas here that are going to be complicated. And we just hope everyone's willing to kind of keep an open mind and listen, you know. So that's what we're trying to do here and make it where everyone can have what we really want. So anyway, I haven't even had time to look through who's in the meeting. I hope some other people were able to kind of record who's in the meeting. Judy, thank you for coming on. I know you're in Florida. And yeah, try to just get a couple of people there that can just sort of get started, because you guys could take what I send to you and work it line by line yourself, and then we all come back to a meeting like this and do that same thing. I just have to get it a little more together to really even put it out there. It's kind of here and there and everywhere. It's safe, but it's kind of a mess.
I mean, seriously, if it's on napkins, you know, stick it in a scanner, you know.
Yeah, it's not on napkins. It's at least all electronic.
Exactly. So, you know, because, you know, we could help get it.
Yeah, well, I agree with that on the one hand. On the other hand, I do know our working groups, this one here, the IT working group, internal operations, plus, you know, the website, everything. Adria's worked so hard, Kate and myself. I've been a part of that team, actually. And, you know, sometimes it's hard to imagine how do we even find another bit of time for ourselves to do yet the next job. So that's why we do definitely need some more recruits, because we have we have two stages, one stage winding up and another stage beginning. And that's really very busy for us. As soon as we get stage 1 wound up, we'll feel relieved, and stage 2 will be able to go forward even faster. But right now we have to start getting stage 2 in order.
Then-
We have to at least give it, some kind of support, and tell people get started.
Nancy, did you still have your hand up on purpose, or?
No.
Okay, I just want to make sure that.
Oh gosh, I didn't realize that I was even on. You guys could hear me. I'm so sorry. I thought I was muted.
You're great.
Yeah, no. Were you asking a question? I'm sorry.
No, well, you have the little hand up icon thing, so I just wanted to
Yeah,
make sure that you weren't.
yeah. I hit it a bunch of times because I just couldn't figure out how to work it.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure you weren't getting passed over if you wanted to say something.
Yeah. Adria, thanks for watching those,
Yeah.
because I don't see the hands on for some reason.
Oh,
So glad for you to be a little bit of a co-pilot here with us, because I couldn't even see their hands up. And I have seen them before, but for some reason not tonight.
I wonder if you have to be a host to see that.
I bet I do. Yes,
Well,
that's probably it.
Make you a
So
co.
thank you for helping me out with that tonight.
Sure.
Yeah. So is there anyone else who would like to say something before we, in the meeting? Melody, would you like to say anything? Okay. Thank you for joining us and for doing all you do. I know everyone's just trying to make everything better so hard and fast. So we're grateful for everything and hope we can kind of keep communicating more and see what this shakes down to be and the reasons why. So anyway, we'll go from there. And I just want to thank everyone for joining us, and we'll go ahead and end our meeting tonight and try to figure out how to move forward as fast as we can, with everyone, having the input that we want them to and need. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mata.
You're welcome, Nancy. Thanks for coming on.